Sash is calling for the urgent implementation of a basic income support grant for those unemployed. According to the latest statistics, over 8.4 million South Africans are now without a job. Let's unpack the story with Evashnee Naidu, the KZN director, or rather regional manager of Black Sash. Evashnee, thanks for your time. And you and I have had this conversation before, haven't we, about the essential need for a basic income grant. So the statement from Black Sash now says there's an urgent need to introduce a permanent basic income support for those aged 18 to 59. Is this different to what we call the BIG?
No, it's actually the same concept. The issue is that, there's so much of stigma when you call something a grant, because as we know, a lot of people in our country think that by giving people grants, we're giving people handouts rather than a hand up. So rather to take away that stigma and discrimination, we choose to call it a basic income support, which is some form of income to ensure that a person between the age of 18 to 59 is able to live with some dignity in our country because of the triple threats of unemployment, inequality, and poverty in our country.
Yeah. The social relief of distress grant, we know, has been extended. It has been a lifesaver for many, many households, but it is, Evashnee, an incredibly small amount of money, given what we know about what it takes to run a household, how much money is needed for a household to survive.
To put into perspective, 370 Rand a month is not enough for an individual to buy a loaf of bread every single day for that month to survive. Now, we're just talking about bread. We're not talking about your hygiene needs and all other basic needs that a human being needs to survive in terms of nutritional value, let alone everything else that you need to survive. Coupled with the unemployment statistics that have come out, we've also received the statistics about the food inflation that is increasing categorically year on year. And when you look at these two factors together, it means that the poorest of the poor continue to be marginalized. But this also means that even the middle class, etc., is struggling in order to make ends meet. And if we do not have the political will behind a basic income support to create some kind of safety net for individuals in households, it's going to become unsustainable in our country. So people cannot survive on just the 370 Rand, which they are getting or not getting, as the case may be, depending on how successful they are in navigating the system.
Right. I mean, that's a shocking perspective, isn't it? That 370 Rand doesn't buy you a loaf of bread every day in the space of a month. So how much would a basic income support be?
So for the Black Sash, one of the calls that we're making is that at least get it to the food poverty line of just over 700 Rand, so that at least their basic needs in terms of nutrition can be met, along with the other things that that individuals can use to take care of. So this would also provide some kind of lifeline, both to the individual, but as well as to the households within which they live, which we know also include other grants, and that the families and the households could then have some kind of dignity to support themselves and kind of overcome these high food inflation practices that are also happening, which we are also not seeing any action on behalf of government to ensure that people living in South Africa are able to even meet these basic needs on a daily basis. The prices of food, of meat, vegetables, and cooking now is skyrocketing as we speak.
I wonder, Evashnee, in your experience and in the experience of Black Sash, whether government has made the link between something like basic income support and the dignity of the poorest people in our country, and then linking that to even higher levels of crime. There is a trauma, isn't there, in living in extreme poverty. There is a trauma in going to bed hungry. And these are not things that happen in isolation. Our high levels of crime, children getting involved in gangsterism and drugs. These are all things that are linked to the desperate lack of humanity and dignity that comes with growing up in poverty.
These are definitely all symptoms of a larger system in our country. And if we take care of the cause, which is the poverty and the inequality and the unemployment, we will see these social factors actually reduce. And countries that have conducted research and also put together far more creative and holistic social protection programs have seen the decrease in terms of crime, drug abuse, domestic abuse, etc., in their own countries when they've invested in their populations. And the problem with South Africa seems to be that we're looking at things not holistically, but in little silos and pockets. And so there's not a centralized governmental initiative that creates a social protection floor for all individuals living in South Africa through which no person should fall. And if we create the safety net and ensure that from birth to death, an individual can be protected, South Africa stands a better chance of overcoming all of the social factors that we are seeing running rampant in our country, particularly the epidemic of things like gender-based violence, drug abuse, etc. in our country.
Statistics South Africa obviously released the latest labour force survey results. We now know that just about 1 in every 2 young people are either without work or, worse still, without work prospects.
And that is such a shocking statistic. It means that an entire generation of people living between the ages of 18 to 35 are actually not probably going to ever work. And how do we then ensure economic growth in our country? How do we ensure an enabling environment for entrepreneurship or other job opportunities, and for our country to grow into a space where everybody who lives here can feel that they belong to this country, but that they are also able to give back? And if we do not have at least a starting point of a permanent basic income support to create an opportunity for those individuals to be able to enter into the job market and create economic growth, etc., then we've already lost the battle. And we are not saying that we are not for job creation or job employment, but we're saying that these processes need to run jointly so that we create these spaces for individuals to be able to grow the economy, build up entrepreneurial opportunities to be able to employ others, but thereby building their communities, building the economy, and building the country together, where everybody feels like they have ownership in it.
Yeah, and you know, critics of basic income support, or what we previously would have referred to as a basic income grant, will say that it is a deterrent for finding a job. It might lead to complacency. In your experience, Evashnee, is there some truth to that? Or would you say the bigger truth there is that people want to be productive members of society?
Like I said, the reality, you cannot buy a loaf of bread for an entire month. So which person would choose, for instance, getting 3,000 Rand in a job at a starting level versus a 370 Rand that you may or may not get, that has bank charges attached to it, where you have to check every single month whether you qualify or don't qualify, as opposed to a stable income that you are getting month on month, where you know what you can do with those funds and you can support your household and your family. Research from government, as well as research from the Black Sash and other civil society partners in South Africa, has shown how essential and what a lifeline that 370 Rand has proved to be for individuals. And that the fact that most of them actually use it to contribute into their households rather than all of the abuses that we suspect people are using it for. A lot of people have even tried to save that money and build job opportunities out of that in order to enhance themselves, so that they are no longer even able to stay on their grant because they've now created an opportunity for themselves. So these naysayers need to look at that rather than the assumptions that they make.
Yeah, absolutely. But we have been having this conversation, as I said at the beginning of our chat, of a basic income grant. And organizations like Black Sash have been petitioning government for years. What has the response been, the official response been from government, outside of the fact that we don't have the money?
So there seems to be, it depends who you speak to in government, obviously. And we know certain political parties have come out very strongly, particularly around election time, that they're in favor of a basic income support, and this is something that they want to create. We know the Department of Social Development is championing a basic income support, have done all of the necessary legwork in order to create the legislation that takes into consideration the fact that we can implement a basic income support, and the fact that we have have to implement a basic support. And the problem is South Africans are now tired of the rhetoric, and we actually want decisive action, and we want a commitment from government that this is going to happen. And as Black Sash, we're hoping that particularly this weekend being such a critical weekend in terms of the first convention of the National Dialogue, that the voices that we bring into this space are going to be listened to, and the realities and the lived realities and the challenges that our people are going through really resonates and lifts up, so that we can make all of these things that we've been calling for all of these years as actual policy that can be implemented and take care of our people.
Yeah, I mean, the phrase that you use, lived reality, is something that, is questionable, in terms of whether politicians actually understand the lived reality of the majority of the people in this country. What's your take on that?
I totally agree. As Black Sash, we are on the ground month in and month out, particularly monitoring the payments of these social grants. And we see the challenges that our people go through. People sleeping overnight at a SASSA office in order to get access to that SASSA office. People coming in at 3, 4 a.m. in the morning to stand outside a retailer or an ATM, not knowing whether their grant is going to be paid or not paid. And people have told us openly and frankly, our government does not care about us. They don't talk to us about what they want. And it seems that our government is so far removed from the reality of our people that the policies that they implement, the decisions that they take, are not in line with the reality of what our people actually go through and have to, and the hoops they jump through in order to get access to these, nominal grants that they receive in order to survive on a month-on-month basis. And hopefully, with us as civil society driving the national dialogue, amplifying the voices of our citizens on the ground and our people on the ground, this will probably be taken more seriously, and that we can have concrete action in terms of the community action plans that we will develop to ensure that policy came with what we're seeing on the ground.
Yeah, I mean, it's heartbreaking, isn't it, as a parent, to be unable to provide for the basic needs of your family. Just what you've described there now, Evashnee, I take it Black Sash will be a big part of the national dialogue.
I'm so sorry, I lost you there for a moment.
Yeah, you did. Your picture froze for just a moment. Black Sash is obviously going to be involved in the national dialogue?
Yes, Black Sash has been invited to be part of the national dialogue, and we're definitely going to be speaking in terms of our sector, which is around social security, particularly comprehensive social security.
Certainly one of the most important parts of what we hope to be addressed in the national dialogue. As you say, the first meeting is going to be held just this weekend. Evashnee, as always, a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for giving us that important perspective. Evashnee Naidu is the Regional Manager for Black Sash in KwaZulu-Natal.